It's not just about the agreements that you and your ex are able to make. It's really about influence. And that doesn't mean control over the other home. Influence comes from how you handle yourself, and that impacts your negotiations with the ex. It impacts your children's experience and your ability to give them vision for the kind of person that they want to be when they become adults. And ultimately, it impacts the level of fun and peace in your own home.
That's right.
Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, hey there, as always, thank you so much for taking time to join us here on Blended Family Breakthrough. We know that your time is valuable, and choosing to invest it with us each week is really humbling, actually. We work hard to bring value to each episode, and we hope that shows. Now, if you love the show, would you give us a rating and a review wherever you happen to be listening? That really helps others to find us so that they can find value and experience breakthrough in their blended family as well. So, hey, thanks in advance for helping us out with that.
Yes.
All right, let's hop in. Today, we're tackling a big challenge for many in blended family life, and that is negotiating with your ex-spouse about co-parenting issues without it turning into World War III.
That's right. Hey, if you've been co-parenting for any length of time, you know this can get complicated really fast. Whether you have a fairly cooperative relationship with your ex or you're dealing with someone who seems to oppose your every move, co-parenting requires wisdom, patience, and some strategy.
So today, we want to share 3 key pillars that have not only helped us in our own journey, but have helped so many couples that we've worked with over the years. The goal is simple: less conflict, more peace, and a better experience for your kids.
We're going to walk you through how to approach co-parenting challenges using those 3 pillars. Here they are: clarity, communication, and consistency. And of course, we'll share some stories from our own bumpy road along the way with co-parenting.
Sure.
So let's hop in and start with that first one: clarity. If you need to negotiate anything, especially with an ex-spouse, you need to be super clear about what you're trying to accomplish and why.
That's right. A while back, we were working with a couple, we'll call them Jason and Emily, and they were constantly frustrated with the differences between their home and Jason's ex's home, particularly around things like screen time and bedtime routines. I know not anybody else deals with that,
never.
right? Yeah. It seemed like every weekend, Jason's son would come back to their house totally exhausted and overstimulated from hours of excessive gaming. It seemed like Jason's ex was giving the child free rein over his gaming habits and had no structure for bedtime either.
Right. Now, at first, they tried to adjust on the fly. One week, they'd focus on earlier bedtimes for his son. The next visitation, they would let things slide to avoid some meltdowns because that got frustrating. Then the next, they would try to set limits around gaming. But all that shifting of focus only led to more confusion. Jason's son didn't really know what to expect from one visit to the next, and they were worn out from trying to enforce a moving target and seemed to be continually second-guessing themselves as
Exactly.
parents.
Yeah. So that's when we started helping them to slow down and build some clarity. They sat down. They talked through the kind of environment that they wanted to create in their home, not based on what was happening at the other home, but based on their own values. So they decided to prioritize some structure and rest and emotional resilience. And once that was established, things started getting just a little bit easier.
Right, because they created a simple evening routine. They agreed on screen time limits, and maybe most importantly, they learned practical ways to approach accountability with Jason's son in a calm, empathetic tone. Now, you might be thinking, well, great. So what does that have to do with negotiating with an ex? Well, because Jason and Emily began creating clarity for themselves in their own home, they then began learning how to approach Jason's ex with confidence in what they really wanted to accomplish, rather than aiming for a moving target or reacting to what his ex was doing in a critical way. They started approaching his ex with more clarity and saying things like, this is what we've chosen to prioritize in our home. We respect that things may look different in yours, but we wanted to communicate clearly so that we can work together when needed.
Absolutely. That's a huge benefit of clarity. It's about getting grounded in the core values that guide your parenting, both in your home and in your interactions with your co-parent. And not just big picture values like we want to raise responsible kids, but specific ones too. Like how you want to handle things like discipline, mealtime routines, screen time habits, and even academic expectations.
That's right. If you're not aligned as a couple in your home, it's almost impossible to approach an ex-spouse with full confidence. You may end up feeling stuck between your current spouse and your ex-spouse. You feel like you know what your current spouse is expecting or hoping for, but if you haven't explicitly talked about it, you might be kind of guessing where you want to hold the line. And at the same time, you're trying to keep the peace with your ex. You sense a lot of ambiguity. And, no matter what, you've got a battle on your hands with one or the other. I've been there.
Yeah, you have. I know.
Plus, if you're not clear, well, your ex could sense that and actually take advantage of it.
Now, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, or if you're a part of our Blending Together community, you've heard us talk about this quite a bit. Getting aligned as a couple, right? Over and over and over. And it's not because we want to be annoying, but because it's so foundational to all the relationships in your blended family. It's typically a starting point for just about every couple we work with. We teach couples how to write out what we call their desired destination statements. And in the end, it's just a simple statement around a core value, a character trait, or a life skill that they want everyone in their home to live out. It starts by identifying a key word or phrase like healthy lifestyle, and then that key word is described with a statement that the couple can agree on. And it usually sounds something like, we will create healthy habits around screen time, food, exercise, and fun. I mean, that's a great, simple example of what healthy habits might sound like.
Right. Having this kind of clarity helps navigate day-to-day life in your own home, but it also helps you stay focused on what you really want to communicate when issues with an ex arise, right? That's going to happen. Rather than feeling stuck between what you think your current spouse is hoping for, being unclear about what you really want and trying to keep the peace with your ex, you'll have clarity about your goal in these negotiations. You know where you're headed. Now, in our example earlier, once Jason gets clear about what he wants for his son's health and wellness, he can begin negotiating more clearly with his ex about the importance of sleep for a growing child and his concerns about it. Now, this doesn't guarantee the ex will respond well, but the clarity that Jason has will keep him focused in the dialogue, and it gives him confidence because he's not aiming at a moving target anymore. He can speak a consistent message each time he interacts with his ex. He may even be able to point back to the value of a healthy lifestyle if and when his son's grades start to slip or they experience behavioral or health problems with him. It gives an anchor to refer to time and time again as he negotiates little by little with his ex. Plus, as he continues to hold the line, it helps the unity with Emily and ultimately teaches his son the value of living a healthy lifestyle.
That's right. It does all of that, and it also gives Jason's son a consistent message, which over time actually builds a sense of trust and security inside that little guy. This kind of clarity and consistency shows the child that, hey, we're not just reacting to what's happening, we're actually parenting from a place of purpose.
Exactly. So here are 3 action steps to help you build clarity as a couple. First, identify your top 4 to 5 core values. Ask yourselves what matters most to us in how we raise our kids and shape our home life. Number 2, create a written definition for each of those core values. Now, this doesn't need to be overly complicated. It's just a sentence or 2 that captures your shared value and family priorities. And then the third one, anticipate reoccurring challenges. Use your values to proactively shape your responses to common pain points like discipline, transitions, schedule shifts, and behavioral expectations. Do this with your child and with your ex. Be anticipating that.
Does it ever feel like people just don't get how tough it is to blend a family? What if you could experience a community that's all about healthy support, guidance, and practical strategies that help you thrive in your blended family? Well, now you can. Blending Together is a supportive community for blended family couples just like you.
We've educated and supported hundreds of couples navigating the unique challenges of blended family life. Now we're inviting you to join our community and experience the transformation that awaits you. Blending Together is not just another community. It's a place where you'll find practical, real-life strategies for building unity as a couple,
Creating more connection as a family,
experiencing partnership in parenting,
and even dealing with that difficult ex.
Blending Together is a safe, growth-focused space where you'll get to connect with us and maybe more importantly, with other blended family couples who truly understand what you're going through. Along the way, you'll discover practical tools, guidance, and hope that empower you to find a future full of confidence and connection.
When you join Blending Together, you'll gain access to a variety of resources like our private Facebook group and online learning platform, monthly coaching meetings, monthly Q&As, and you'll even get to vote on the content for our monthly workshops.
Blending a family can often leave couples feeling alone or isolated, and quality support can sometimes be expensive and hard to find. That's why we're offering you access to all of this at a super low monthly rate, because every blended family deserves the opportunity to thrive regardless of their budget.
So scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes and click the link to join us in the Blending Together community and meet other couples just like you in our upcoming community meeting. Plus, when you join before the end of the month, you'll gain access to our brand new bonus mini course that will help you make quick headway. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. We can't wait to meet you inside Blending Together. Just click the link all the way at the bottom of the show notes to get started.
We'll see you there.
That's right. You know, I know we make this sound really simple, and it kind of is, but simple and easy are 2 different things. Actually implementing all of this can be challenging. So if you'd like some support working through those steps, we would love to help you. You can join us inside the Blending Together community, where we offer coaching, resources, and real-time support to help you get aligned as a couple and show up with clarity and confidence, even when it's challenging. Then, as you build this kind of clarity, it could become an anchor for you in every negotiation moving forward in your co-parenting relationship, kind of like Kim was just talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. The next pillar might be the most important and the most difficult. So let's talk a little bit about communication.
We've seen it all, right? Angry texts, legal threats, snarky emails. And it's tempting to fight fire with fire, especially when your ex is rude, manipulative, or just plain unreasonable. But let's be honest. Fighting back with retaliation usually gets us nowhere. It just feeds the fire of animosity.
Exactly. Reactive communication rarely leads to progress. One negotiation expert and author, William Ury, says, respect is the cheapest concession you can make in a negotiation.
I love that. Respect costs you nothing, but it can actually change the emotional temperature of a conversation. Ury teaches that when you show respect, you're doing more than just being polite. You're preserving the other person's dignity. And every human being, no matter how difficult they might be, is wired to protect their own dignity.
Absolutely. That's key. When you lead with respect, even when you completely disagree with the other person, you're actually helping to lower the defenses, and you can change the trajectory of the conversation. And when somebody's defenses are down, they're a little more likely to actually listen and respond a bit more constructively.
I've had countless negotiations with my ex over the years. Some were fairly simple, especially in those seasons when we were collaborating reasonably well. But way too many were tension-filled in those seasons when we were opposed. Some of those tense conversations have gone pretty well, and some of them didn't. The difference maker was typically how much I was able to maintain my composure and remain respectful even when he chose not to. Sure, I was frustrated and I had to process some anger after the conversation, but when I remained respectful, I actually felt better about myself afterwards. I took the high road. And each time I showed up respectfully, it built my confidence and resilience in negotiation. I was no longer allowing my ex's dysfunction to become my dysfunction. I wasn't allowing his reactions to dictate my approach to negotiation.
Man, that's really powerful, honey. So choosing to respect your ex actually built some self-respect in you.
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
And this took a while, but I kept growing in my confidence and ability to focus on being who I wanted to be, regardless of how he was showing up.
Okay, that's great. But what about how your respectful responses impacted his behavior? So it's good that it built resilience in you, but we're trying to, negotiate here.
Well, I wish I could say it just magically turned his behavior around, but that's simply not the case.
Oh, some people just hit stop and stop listening.
Expecting change from a challenging ex is most likely an unrealistic expectation. But over time, I do think that it kind of mellowed his responses out a bit.
Sure.
I think particularly because it just wasn't as much fun for him to mess with me anymore, because I wasn't reacting when he tried to push my buttons. But I also began seeing him through a different lens. I started seeing him as a hurting human. All of this was difficult for him too. And he had pressures from his wife at the time and many other challenges that contributed to his disrespect toward me. It wasn't easy for me to reframe how I saw him because how he was treating me wasn't okay.
Right.
But I'm a person of faith, and it took an act of God for me to begin changing my heart. However, as I made that shift to giving him dignity simply for being a hurting human, it did start to change our negotiations. It didn't mean that I suddenly started trusting him. In fact, I've never regained trust for him because he hasn't responded in a trustworthy manner. But I chose to give him the dignity of responding with respect, even when I felt disrespected.
Man, that is such a powerful reframe. And I think this is something that we all need to learn in our world today. We seem to be in this culture that says, if you don't agree with me, then we can't respect each other. And it creates divides between countries. It causes splits in communities, riots at protests, bullying in social media, and of course, division and disconnection in our families and in our homes. It's probably one of the biggest epidemics that we're facing at this point in human history. And the antidote is actually pretty darn simple. Start showing the dignity of respect to those you don't agree with. And to your point, honey, it doesn't mean that you have to concede or even to trust.
That's right.
But simple respect tends to reduce tension rather than to fuel it.
Yes. So if you're in a tough spot with your ex, here are a few action steps that can help you improve communication. First, slow down before responding. Don't match their tone. Okay?
Yeah.
Pause, breathe, take 10 minutes or more if you need it before replying. Second, lead with validation. Even if you disagree, you can acknowledge that their perspectives or their feelings are valid. Try something like this. I see this as important to you. Or, I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's good.
And third, use collaborative language. Shift your focus from you versus me to we're in it for the kids. That's where our focus needs to be. Questions like this can help. How can we support our child together? Or what might feel reasonable for both of us? This can sometimes redirect the conversation in a more positive direction. And remember, respectful communication in these tough moments isn't just for your ex. It's for your kids. They're watching how you handle conflict. They're watching how you respond to stress. They pick up on tone and body language. And they're learning how to navigate hard conversations by what they see in you.
That's absolutely right. And it's not easy,
No.
but it is worth it. You're not just keeping the peace here. You're building a legacy of emotional resiliency and safety for your kids. All right, let's tackle the third pillar, which is consistency. Now, this might sound simple as well, but when you're co-parenting across two households, consistency can be difficult to maintain, but powerful.
Consistency is about how you show up over time in your communication with your ex. If you want to build influence and avoid unnecessary conflict, you have to become known as someone who is calm, clear, and consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. If your tone shifts depending on your mood, or your boundaries change depending on your level of stress, or you only follow up some of the time, you're sending mixed signals. That unpredictability in you actually invites pushback and create a bit of chaos. But when your ex knows what to expect from you, your boundaries, your tone, your follow through, then over time, they start to learn how to interact with you more constructively.
This was a hard one for me personally because early on, I'd be respectful in one message, but if I didn't get the response that I hoped for, I'd follow up with a snarky comment or a passive-aggressive reply, or I just would avoid it altogether. I was inconsistent, and I could feel how it eroded trust and progress in my co-parenting relationship. What I learned is that consistency in communication with an ex is just as critical and powerful as consistency with maintaining the values in our home. We need both.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You don't have to be perfect, right? You just need to be predictable. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Speak with clarity and with kindness and repeat that process, even when the ex chooses not to. In fact,
right.
Probably especially when the ex chooses not to. Yeah.
And remember that consistency is a form of self-respect. When you maintain your boundaries and communicate with steadiness, you're protecting your own peace. You're modeling maturity and emotional intelligence, not just to your kids, but for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get it. Like, this takes a lot of courage and focus. You might be even accused of being controlling or inflexible when you're kind of holding the line. But over time, people begin to understand that you're not really being difficult. You're being deliberate. You're choosing stability over chaos. And that choice actually builds trust, even if it's not acknowledged right away.
Yeah. And here's the beautiful result. Your kids feel more secure because they see you showing up with consistency. Your current spouse feels supported because they know you're united in your approach. And most importantly, you spend way less energy managing drama because your patterns of communication have become clear and trustworthy.
Absolutely. Consistency is how you quietly build influence. It's how you shift the dynamic, even if the other household never changes their approach. And over time, it actually protects your peace and preserves your power.
Right. So don't give up. Even if it feels like your consistency isn't working right away, keep showing up in a way that's clear and respectful, and keep doing that over and over again.
Absolutely. Here's the bigger picture. It's not just about the agreements that you and your ex are able to make. It's really about influence. And that doesn't mean control over the other home. Influence comes from how you handle yourself, and that impacts your negotiations with the ex. It impacts your children's experience and your ability to give them vision for the kind of person that they want to be when they become adults. And ultimately, it impacts the level of fun and peace in your own home.
That's right. You may never get the other parent to fully agree with your choices, and that's okay. Your real power lies in creating a consistent, values-driven environment in your home. That's where seeds of influence are planted and can steadily grow.
That's right. We saw that in Annika over time. Like there were plenty of moments when we felt powerless, especially during that 3-year season that we were in family court. But when we stepped back and focused on being clear, respectful, and consistent with her dad, and we focused on similar approaches at home, we saw her responding to that even as an adult today.
Yeah.
She's working on becoming that kind of person herself, actually living out the family values. It's pretty neat to watch right now.
Yeah, it really is. She's learned that even when things are chaotic elsewhere, she can rely on us. And that's still true today. That trust didn't happen overnight, though. It was built moment by moment in all of the small ways we showed up in our home and across households.
Definitely. Okay, so I have to admit that I've got this kind of silly, guilty pleasure. And it's kind of hard to admit it, right? I love watching the Judge Judy show. If you haven't ever heard of Judge Judy, go look her up. And yeah, it's silly. But a while back, I wrote down something that she said when she was dealing with a co-parenting case. She said, "You've got to love your children more than you hate each other." Now, that is not just one of her zingers. And believe me, she's got a lot of zingers, right? It's a worthy challenge I think we all need to really grab a hold of.
So powerful, because if we let bitterness lead, we lose sight of what matters most.
That's right. Wherever you are in the co-parenting journey, whether things are civil or contentious, we hope today's conversation gives you a little bit of hope and maybe even some tangible direction.
Yeah. And you're not alone. We've walked through it ourselves. We felt the exhaustion and the helplessness and the frustration, but we've also seen breakthrough. We've seen what happens when couples focus on clarity, lean into respectful communication, and commit to consistency.
Absolutely. So take it one step at a time. Think about one conversation that you might be able to handle differently this week. What's one boundary that you might need to reinforce, but to do that with kindness and respect?
Yes. And don't forget, your children are watching. They're learning how to handle conflict and how to advocate for themselves, as well as build healthy relationships by watching you. That's a huge opportunity you don't want to miss out on. Now, if you'd like to learn more about how you can experience less conflict, more peace, and a better experience for your kids, we put a link in the show notes to all the episodes that we've got on co-parenting. Discovering healthy mindsets and practical strategies can make all the difference.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for spending this time with us. We would love to hear how you're applying these principles. So be sure to follow us over on Facebook or Instagram and leave a comment or ask a question. Just look up Blended Family Breakthrough. And also be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on our Simple Step episode next week, where we're going to explore how to respond to a passive-aggressive co-parent. Ooh, that sounds fun. And don't forget also to leave a review. Your responses can really help other blended family couples to find support as well. Hey, thanks so much. That's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.